Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast, and today I am so excited for you to meet Katya Davydova. How are you, Katya?
Daniela, it's such a joy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm having the time of my life already, so grateful to be here.
So Katya is an organizational and leadership development expert. She's an author. I can't wait to tell you more about her book, and a handstander, which I am totally jealous of because I only get as far as a headstand, not quite a hand. So we'll have to chat about that. Her core belief is that we can be better humans through curiosity, empathy, and just our candor and the questions we ask and the conversations we have and those connections, which I am huge on because I think we definitely grow and learn through those shared experiences we don't even realize we have with each other in those connections. So thank you so much, Katya, for joining me today.
Yes, absolutely. And Daniela, the fact that you are already doing headstands is such a testament to your own progress. So excited to dive in here.
So just curiously, was handstanding like a goal that you set, or it just kind of flowed?
Yeah, it came from the fact that I was a gymnast and I competed in high school and college, but interestingly got better at handstands after I quit gymnastics, where I put like the deliberate everyday practice.
Mm-hmm.
And as a little bit of a metaphor, when you do a handstand or when you do any sort of inversion, you kind of actually see the world from a new perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
just turning the world on its head, literally, and seeing what comes of it, what sort of new perspectives we might find in that position.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've noticed that even from my headstands, like I do my meditation, my yoga practice in the morning when like I kind of keep the lights dim downstairs, and my own house that I'm in all the time looks completely different. My dining room looks different. Everything does, even the familiar gives a new take when you look at it from a different angle.
Yeah, there's so much little joy in the ordinary, right? That
Mhm.
we can find.
So what led you to be an organizational leadership development expert, an author? What motivated you to kind of follow this path and journey?
Of course. So, as a lot of us know, the world of work can be overwhelming. And if we spend a third of our lives sleeping, a third of our lives working, then that means that a huge majority of our lives are spent doing something that A, we either can enjoy, or B, something that we dread looking forward to Monday morning, right? Come a new work week. And early on in my career, I had, as many of us do, had some experiences that were less than ideal for what an ideal work environment should be. There was this particular moment I began my career in consulting where within the third week, Daniela, I was sitting underneath the large, like mahogany-esque desk, with my monitors, all of the spreadsheets up. And I was just sitting underneath the desk crying because like, what is happening? I feel like I don't know anything and I feel like no one can help me. And it was just such a visceral moment where I was like, this is not the life to live. If we
Right.
spend so much of our lives at work, shouldn't we find the meaning, the joy, the purpose in what we do day in and day out? Whether it's working, as a mom, because that is such a full-time job, whether it's working a corporate job, whatever, however you define work, how do we actually make it work for humans
Mm-hmm.
versus just focus on the processes? So I've kind of fell into the world of organizational development through a bunch of internships and then went to grad school for it, realized that this is a thriving field, especially now as we're trying to figure out the hybrid/remote working models and how to do so amid a shaky economy, amid a globalization that feels particularly fragmented these days. And I wanted to dive into helping other humans feel their best selves at work, again, because we spend so much of our lives on it and dedicated to it.
Mm-hmm. So just curiously, what are your thoughts then on this whole concept of work-life balance or work-life harmony? Because I know there's a lot of very extreme and polarizing thoughts when it comes to it. I have some of my own, but I'm definitely curious as someone who works in this and helps people kind of find that, even just when you said a third, what do you see? What's the reality, and what can people do to look at that perspective a little bit differently as well?
Yeah, beautiful question. I know that in the organizational development space, the sort of buzzword has shifted from work-life balance to work-life integration, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we integrate our work into our lives versus how do we integrate our lives into our work? There is unfortunately no easy answer that even I, as an OD expert, have come up with, right? But I think the biggest thing that it boils down to is being able to set those boundaries to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate X amount of time to this task, to this project, to this portion of my day, if it's a work day or not, and then do anything else, and then do everything else. So setting those boundaries and being present and learning how to say no, which is such a wild thing. And I know that your previous guests have talked about this too. How do we adequately say no to people, to projects in a kind way, in a way that we are not letting not only them down, but not letting ourselves down with our own priorities, our own lives? Danielle, I'm curious to hear, like, do you have a formula of work-life balance? Because I know you do so much, right, beyond this podcast, leading your community. How has your sort of sense of work-life balance or integration come to life?
Definitely. I use the word balance, even though I know it's fine triggering for people, because I don't think it looks like everything equal. I think balance comes from definitely boundaries, being able to adapt and pivot and have that resilience, and understanding that, one day might look heavy in one area, one day might look heavy in another, but definitely those boundaries. I almost look at it, boundaries isn't always about saying no. It's about saying yes within a specific time frame. And I think if we relook at boundaries, it's not about turning things down, but creating opportunities in a way that's going to work for you is a great way to kind of shift the way we look at that. Because I think as women, especially, a lot of times we're just conditioned to people please, to say yes, to make everybody else happy, whether as a mom at home or making sure the kids are happy, our spouse is happy, everything's done, or we're at our job. And we get lost in that whole process. But when we say yes within specific time periods, I think is where we then find the free time that we are looking for to say yes to ourselves. And it's not letting anybody else down. It's not compromising anybody else because they've already gotten their yes. We're not taking away from them. We're adding us.
I love that. It's the additive property, right? How can we actually add fuel to our own fire versus try to put out everybody else's?
Yeah. Yeah. Are there specific things when you train people that you help them to kind of, because I know as someone who's worked on my own personal development and you have trained on it, where do people start with that? Because I think that's the daunting part of it, is figuring out where to start and how to deal with what we automatically assume or perceive are going to be the pushbacks.
Yeah. So for context, I'm a leadership facilitator. So I teach managers and executives how to be good managers and executives. And I was actually having this conversation with a friend. We were discussing, like, if we had to boil down all of leadership, all of what it takes to be a good leader, manager, employee at work, what is that core skill? And I thought about it, and the thing that first and most prominently came to mind was self-awareness. Like, are you aware of how much time you're investing in X task or Z project? Are you making time to be intentional about creating your list of your most important things for the morning, for the week, for the month, for the quarter? Are these activities helping you kind of be the North Stars for what you want to do, what you want to be, what you want to accomplish, versus just answering all of the Slack messages, right? Putting out those fires. And I think that intentionality and self-awareness of where am I dedicating my time and where do I want to be dedicating the time? How do I bridge that gap? I think that is the thing that a lot of folks, they're like, yeah, I should do that, right? So there's a difference between it makes so much sense to do this and between common practice. How do we embed that as daily habits to actually take that pause and reflection period?
Right. And so definitely, if you're listening, rewind and listen to that again, because she gave you the exact steps to start, which was amazing. Intentionality and self-awareness. If you're driving, wait and re-listen to it later. But I love, just like you said, it can be very simple, but it's the act of doing it, of the consistency of it, that's going to make such a difference, And I love the way you speak to it in a way that doesn't feel like heavy. There's no guilt. You would acknowledge, those other parts of it that I think are where we get tripped up.
One thing too that really helped me put this into perspective of an actual practice versus just something nice to think about every quarter is a quote from one of my favorite people. He's a mentor of mine. He said something along the lines of this: it is easy to stop and think and pause and be intentional when things are easy, when our workloads feel manageable. However, real mastery comes when we're stressed or working to deadline or have too many things on our plate. So reframing, right? Doing the whole cognitive reframe of saying, okay, I've got a really hard season coming up. This is my playground, like actually my opportunity to practice these skills, knowing that it's a practice, not a perfection. I know
Right.
that you talk a lot about getting rid of the shoulds, the perfectionism, right, on your community spaces, and allowing yourself the grace to say, all right, I get to practice. I get to be in this playground. It's going to be really freaking hard. And
Right.
yet that's how I build my muscles.
As well as I think we all need to let go of the perfectionism, because I think that's where the guilt comes from, is because we're human. We're going to mess up. We're going to have our hot mess moments. We all do, even those of us in the know, in the field who do and practice these things. But it's about not unpacking and stay there, not letting that then take over the day. The fact that you can back up, acknowledge that part and move on is so pivotal in being able to then manage those hard times.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your book, which I'm so excited to share. It's called Joy in Plain Sight, and it's a collection of stories and essays celebrating the wonder in the ordinary amid all the noisy busyness that is our lives. Because I think so many times, there's this expectation joy comes from, the sunset, the beach, all these, like serene moments, when our lives are busy, messy, ugly sometimes. And how can you still find joy in just being you?
Yeah, exactly. And Danielle, you actually summarized it so perfectly. The thing that really catapulted me to dive into this, it was honestly an experiment, right? Like, could I spend a year trying to build my own intentionality muscle about focusing on the tiny things in the ordinary? Because at the core, what I really wanted to feel, and I think that many of us will resonate with this, I wanted to feel more like a human being and
Mm-hmm.
less of a human doing, right?
Right.
As moms, as executives, as employees, as leaders, a lot of what our lives can look like, I intuit, is go, 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 right? We got to do this, then do that, then do this, then do that. It's just like this giant conveyor belt of tasks that need to get done, achievements that need to get highlighted. But is that the secret to a good life?
Mm-hmm.
There's many secrets to a good life, right? I'm not going to confess to say that I know all of them, because I don't. Everyone has their own sort of slew of what makes their lives magical. But in trying to feel more present, especially against the backdrop of the attention economy, where every single ding, notification, Slack message, right? They're all vying for our attention. And I don't know about you, but especially over the last decade, I found myself even more distracted by
Mm-hmm.
all of those little shiny objects, right? It's the shiny object syndrome.
Yep.
And then, of course, you look at your laptop screen, it's 11 o'clock at night, you're still, slaving away at work, and you're just like, where did the day go? Why
Right.
didn't I get to work out? Why didn't I get to hang out with my kids, my family, my friends, right? And so I wanted to see, how do I cultivate that sense of presence amidst that noisy world by not doing something drastic. This was born out of the pandemic, where couldn't really travel to a nice, beautiful tropical country and just live there, right? Forget all my worries. I wish, but that wasn't possible for many of us, because the world was pretty dire. The world was actually pretty darn bleak.
Right.
And so over the pandemic, I began practicing the ritual of my morning walks. So I would go out just before the start of the workday and go on the same loops around my neighborhood day after day after day. And in that sameness was that intentional paying attention or focusing my mind on the flitter of a hummingbird whirring past my ear, or like a really crunchy leaf on the sidewalk, or just the delight of going to my favorite coffee shop, getting the same darn thing every time. And yet the experience of talking to the cashier, of, smiling or nodding to a masked stranger passing by, all of those little moments were so additive that they
Mm-hmm.
created that experience of, holy moly, I get to be here.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah. And so documenting those moments exactly along the way was really just such a nice way to hopefully be vulnerable and sharing my own story, so that folks would feel connected and less alone in theirs.
Absolutely. Because I think we do have some of those same things. As you were speaking, I could instantly picture myself. We have a 1 mile loop in my neighborhood that my husband and I walk all the time with the dog. And during the pandemic, I was able to do it before work. Now, not so much, but definitely I think it helps to break down some of those myths when it comes to having habits and having routines, that people think it takes the spontaneity, it takes the joy. But I think sometimes those habits and routines that are automated give you the space and freedom to notice, because you're no longer thinking of what's coming next. What am I going to order? You can now talk to the cashier because you're not staring at the screen above him trying to figure out what you want and things like that. And so it completely validates all those benefits that can come. The decision fatigue is gone because you know already what you're going to order. And it kind of keeps things simple in such a way that it doesn't lend itself to that, myth of becoming so boring that, you don't have that joy anymore. But if anything, that's the source of the joy, which is fantastic.
Yes, yes. And even if you're someone who lives a very spontaneous, right? Spontaneous life, just jet sets to Aruba on a whim. That's amazing. Please take me with you next time. But even in that spontaneity, it's cultivating that sense of awareness, right? So going back to that sense of presence and awareness of like, even as I'm traveling in an airplane for the first time in many months, what are the things that can delight me? What are the things that I can be delighted by, to really bring that just visceral presence to a moment? And I'll share to you, Danielle, I'll be the first to say, like, that is really hard. It's really, for example, I came back from the climbing gym last night and I told my, it was 10 o'clock at night. So I was like, it's time to go to bed. I sat, and I will admit this live on air, I sat on my phone doom scrolling through Instagram for over an hour. Now, y'all, this is like ridiculous behavior, right? Because my logical brain knows better. My heart, my soul, I don't know what it was thinking, right? But it was definitely not being present. But then returning back to the practice, I actually want to share something called habit stacking in just a bit. How do we embed those habits for that momentary presence in our days and get to practice them, even when we go ourselves off the rails?
Right. And I love habit stacking as well. So definitely share away, because I think even when it comes to some of the same concepts, we all have unique ways to explain it, to look at it, but James Clear is definitely the guru, the god when it comes to that. So how do you explain and teach habit stacking?
Yes. So I love that you brought James Clear into the picture, because he's such a great writer. The way I like to think about it is, if we have determined, so step one is actually determining for ourselves, like, why do we want more joy in our lives? Right? Joy is something that is it's such one of those visceral feelings that you feel through your heart, through your soul, through your chest, right? Not just in your head up here logically. And so step one is determining, why does this matter to me? What benefit will I gain from being a more joyful person, from experiencing more joy in my life, from really diving into this practice? Whatever that determination is, that's kind of like the North Star, right? That's the theme, the thing that we keep coming back to. Step two, one of the things that I teach is habit stacking, in that if we want to embed this new practice of joy into our daily lives, because we're not going to change overnight, our goal is to look at the tiny, tiny habits of imbuing more joy into the ordinary, is first picking something that we already do. You and I brush our teeth twice a day, I hope, right? I'd reckon that anybody listening here hopefully brushes their teeth at least once a day, every day. And that alone is just 2 minutes, where I'll admit, before I would scroll on Reddit. I would just, have my electric toothbrush and just kind of scroll with the other hand. But now it's thinking about, how can I actually take that moment to peacefully reflect on my day at the end of the day, or in the morning if I'm brushing my teeth, to kind of set an intention for, how do I want this day to unfold? So taking those 4 total minutes that are already taken up by brushing your teeth, and embed this new habit of reflecting on the day's joys, or in the morning, to really set the intention for, how do we want this day to go forward? So that's one way to really consider it.
I've even shared this Pilates instructor that I follow. She had shared, like, to do squats when you're brushing your teeth, like if you're trying to add a movement goal or things like that. It doesn't have to just be things we think. It can be physical actions we do during that time that can lead us towards what we want.
And even if it's just sitting or standing for 2 minutes in front of the mirror, just being present, right? Spending that time with ourselves, our own best friend in ourselves, that can also be so valuable. Right? Just cultivating that awareness in the moment.
Well, and I was also thinking too, when you were talking about how we used to be able to pay attention to more things, and now we just kind of scroll. And I've almost kind of jokingly said, like, I think that's why I can remember all the songs from the 80s and like all these other things. They didn't have a phone back then. And so I think I was intentionally more present in the car, listening and singing along to songs and those types of things, and just remembering different events and facts, because I didn't have any dings, any notifications, even if you're not checking your phone, they're still taking your attention away from being present where you are. And I think that is part of our culture when it comes to just being present, is all those other distractions.
Yes, yes, exactly. Daniela, that's such a beautiful launching point. Can I share a little bit about the treasure hunt framework? Because I think it's a really nice addition
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
So in the face of all of this distraction, right? There's something that I coined to be the treasure hunt framework. And like you said, right, we each of us has a way of repackaging core central humanity oriented concepts in our own novel ways. So this may sound new to you, this may sound so obvious to you, but I'm so excited to share it with you. So the treasure hunt framework goes like this. The way that we live our lives is based on the assumptions that we make about our world. So Danielle, if you and I assume that most people in the world are good, we're far more likely to encounter really good people. Just as a curiosity, do you assume that most people are good at the core?
For the most part. I probably need to be better about that when I'm driving, but yes.
Yes, yes. I know that's actually a really good caveat. When I'm driving, I'm just like,
Yeah.
why is everyone this way? Absolutely. But granted, right, on the whole, we are surrounded by really awesome people, your family, your friends, your community that you lead. Similarly, what if we were to assume that in the space or in the fabric of our everyday world, what if there was an infinite amount of treasures or tiny little moments of pause, of wonder, of joy that actually make us slow down and pay attention to them?
Mm-hmm.
What this means is that we actually become treasure hunters, right? We actually can don our treasure hunting hats and say, wow, I can just believe, assume, intuit, recognize the fact that there's an infinity of all these amazing things out there in my everyday world, whether we're just going grocery shopping or doing some high profile presentation. Then how can I look for them?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
can I intentionally pause my sort of awareness to be hyper aware of it and combat and battle the attention economy, not get distracted by all the things that are purposefully distracting us from what matters most, whatever that is to you. And so I just really like this concept of looking for treasures, right? Like we get to be little kids again, hunting for treasures out there within the fabric of our day-to-day world. So
I
it's
love
finding
that.
that.
What an amazing way to think about some of the most common mundane things we do, that they're an adventure, they're a treasure hunt, that there are moments of joy hidden in it, so that we're not dreading doing the grocery shopping, even doing the laundry, things like that, that you can find that joy in it.
Yeah. And it's also combating, like I say this with a lot of recognition of the fact that toxic positivity is such a big buzzword these days, where people are like, oh, you're sad? Well, just be happy, right? That's the solution to all of your life's problems. And as a social worker, that's not true, right? That cannot be the resolution to our feelings of our own unhappiness or guilt or shame. So the challenge here is recognizing that, especially in the moments where the world feels bleak, that again gets to be our playground to say, oh, yes, everything sucks. The world's on fire. I have so many deadlines. And yet it's being deliberately skeptical to say, but what if there was something good? Like, what if? It's leading with that curiosity mindset. What if I could find something good about X, Y, or Z?
Right. Yeah. And from the social work standpoint, like when I do work with people, it's not about getting rid of the negative thoughts. It's not stop thinking that, because again, that's the pink elephant in the room. That's all you're going to think about at that point. It's about adding in those other positive thoughts, those other things. So it's an and, so that it's part of the rotation now. So it's not just the negative 24/7. It's the negative only maybe 22, it's the negative a little bit less. And if you can add more of those positive thoughts, those moments of joy, those other things, it's not that the other thing is gone and you're not, acknowledging that you have those other maybe sad feelings or negative thoughts or whatnot, but it's in addition to them, so that they are not all consuming anymore.
Yes, yes. It's the yes and mindset versus the no but mindset.
Exactly. And so as part of that, I do always like to incorporate gratitude as a part of self-care, because I think it is highly overlooked and it's so easy to tap into, because it's all about your own perspective, your own thoughts and feelings about situations. And so what would you say are some of your things that you're most grateful for?
This season in particular, I have been so blessed to be part of a community that is growing and intentional. So I think I mentioned I joined a climbing community here in my local gyms. And LA to me seems like a notoriously spicy or, a somewhat difficult place to make really, really deep connections, right? I have a bunch of friends everywhere, right? I'm so blessed with the people that that I meet. But my gratitude is in building the intentional community around my climbing buddies, seeing them crush climbs every week, every day. And just as I get older, this is a quote actually that my mom said. Mom, if you're listening, love you. She sent me a quote, and this is not hers, but she sent me a quote that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so how do we cultivate that sense of friendship, of community, of relationships, of investing in other people, of like taking the time out of our day to be present with somebody else in whatever their lives mean? So my gratitude, I think the biggest thing is the relationships and the people that I'm blessed, truly, truly blessed to be surrounded with. I know a lot of people say this, right? Like whenever people ask, like, what's the thing you're grateful for? My people, my tribe. But I think that's why so many people say it, is because it is so fundamental to how we live nowadays. And it was so fundamental to how we grew up in tribes, right? There's a reason that the phrase, it takes a village, exists, because it does take a village, y'all. So that would be my little, but yet giant ball of gratitude.
Yes, and I'm definitely quoting your mom in the show notes because I love that. That is such a fantastic phrase. So thank you, Katya's mom, for sharing that with us.
Mom. Yes.
So where can people find you? How can they work with you? And how can they get a copy of your book?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So if you would like, I would love to actually hear from you, from whoever's listening. If you're on Instagram, please find me at Joy in Plain Sight. If you ever want to check out a little bit more of what I do, I've done speaking. I'm a professional leadership facilitator, so I love getting on stage. Feel free to find me on katyadavydova.com, first and last name.com. I also offer one-on-one coaching, workshop facilitation, public speaking, and sort of events speaking. And it is just a joy. It would be a joy to connect with you. So seriously, if you're listening right now and if you're galvanized or skeptical or feeling any sort of way about connecting, I encourage you to reach out. I reply to every single one. It would make my day to say hello and see how Joy.
Sweetheart too. Like we've only contacted twice, but I feel like I've known her forever. So you guys love getting to know Katya. All the links will be live in the show notes below. So thank you so much, Katya, for joining me today.
Absolutely. Danielle, such a treasure and a joy. I appreciate you so much.
So much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.